Your color. Like your color.
Thank you, thank you.
All right,
Where are we at?
let me see. I gotta get my documents ready here. I'll be right there and we'll start the meeting. I'm just gonna call up my documents. I have them in here somewhere. Shoot. There we are. There we are. Okay. All right. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
I hope everybody's doing well and staying safe. All right, I'm going to put up the agenda. And I will call the meeting to order. And we'll start with the roll call. Erwin?
Okay, good evening, everyone. Mumin Bar,
Here.
Shruti Bhatnagar,
Here.
Juan Cardenas,
Here.
Aileen Charcudian Rogers,
Here.
Harold Diamond,
Here.
Arthur Edmonds,
Here.
Linda Foley,
Here.
Joe Gebhardt,
Here.
Scott Goldberg.
Present.
Had to be different, huh?
Delay.
Marjorie Goldman,
Here.
Mimi Hassanin,
Here.
Laura Henderson,
Here.
Jennifer Guzman Hosey,
She's here. She was having trouble with her laptop.
or I'll mark her as present.
Yep.
Samantha Jones. Samantha? Okay, I'm marking Samantha as absent. Susie Kaplan. Susie? Okay, I'm marking Susie as absent. Aaron Kaufman.
Here.
Daniel Caroma.
Here.
Dave Coons. Dave? Okay, I'm marking Dave as absent. Matthew Lee.
Present.
Pam Luckett.
Present.
Marie Mapes.
Present.
Lori Rodich.
Here.
I am here. Greg Wims
Here.
and Sarah Wallach informed us she was not able to attend. Is that correct? Is Sarah here?
No.
Okay, marking Sarah as absent. Okay, thank you, everyone.
I assume we have a quorum, right?
Yes.
We had several people missing, but I think we have more than enough for a quorum. Okay, and as usual, unless there's an objection, we're gonna consider the Zoom meeting, attendance at the Zoom meeting to be in-person attendance for purposes of this meeting. And let me just add here real quick that, you know, when we do go back to in-person meetings, assuming we do that, and we'll probably have to have a discussion about whether we want to do that, we might not. Then, you know, we may want to take a look at our attendance rules, because it may make sense to have some people on Zoom, and, you know, that may be fine. So, let's just put a marker in on that. And when we get more information about what we can do, then, you know, we'll take a look at it. So now, next on the agenda is approval of the agenda. And as I indicated earlier today, I did circulate a statement about what happened to Councilwoman Nancy Navarro. So I would like to add that action on that under number 7, new business. I'd like to make that amendment to the agenda. And if our, and so with that, I would like to, someone to move to approve the agenda.
So move, Pam.
Moved by
Second.
Pam. Seconded by Greg. Yes.
Oh, did you say Jennifer Hosey in the attendance? I'm having a lot of trouble hearing.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. We knew you were having trouble with your laptop, Jennifer. And so Erwin marked you as being here.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Okay, so I will now I did entertain a motion to approve the agenda. Is there any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the agenda is adopted. Next, we'll go to number 3, the consent agenda. Erwin sent out to you a copy of the secretary's report, which is the minutes of the February 9th meeting, and the attendance report from the February 9th meeting. Also in that packet is a summary of our executive committee meeting last week and the precinct organization report. Does anyone, Erwin or anyone else, Shruti, want to say anything about anything in the consent agenda?
No, I have nothing to add to the.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so
Can we print out this screen right from this right now?
No, you can't.
no, you can't.
Linda,
Thank
do
you.
you want to welcome guests?
Yeah, I will, but let me finish this order of business. I'm going to finish the order of business and then I'll welcome the guests. Okay, so we now have the consent agenda before us. Is there, there was a motion to approve it. Is there any further discussion on the consent agenda? All right, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Moomin.
Moved by
Second,
Moomin.
Aaron.
Seconded by Aaron. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, any opposition? Okay, thank you. And now, thank you, Michael. I will introduce the guests as far as I can see them. So let's see. Norm, you
Hello.
want to introduce yourself?
Well, I'm Norm Leventhal and I'm in my robe ready to go to bed, but I forgot that we had this at 7:30, so forgive me. And I'm very interested in what's happening in the Democratic parties, plural.
Thank you. Norm just joined our fundraising committee, so welcome addition there. Let me see. It's hard for me to see because the chat just popped up there. Hold on a second. Okay. Let's see. Andrew. Andrew, you want to introduce yourself?
Me, Andrew?
Who said that? Whoever, whichever Andrew. Go ahead. If your name's Andrew,
There are a
introduce
lot of Andrews. Hi, I'm Andrew.
And
Oh, I'm the president of the Germantown Democrats.
okay,
It's
great.
nice to see you all.
Thank you. Okay, Bobby Bartlett, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Bobby Bartlett. I live in Germantown. It's glad to be able to join y'all tonight.
I'm
It's like
glad
to
you're
be
here,
on the
Bobby.
moon.
Thank you for coming. And David Winfield. David?
He's on mute.
Oh, David, you're on mute.
David Winfield here,
Oh, great.
precinct 0928.
Great, thank you. And I think I saw Marilyn Pierre.
Hi, yes, you did. I'm Mary Lynn Pierre, and I am the Vice President of the Rockville Mid-County Democratic Breakfast Club. We are having Peter Franchot at our meeting next Monday. I am going to put the information in the chat, and I hope everyone can join us.
Great, thank you, Marilyn. And Marilyn, if you could get the information to communications@mcdcc.org, we'll try to get it in the newsletter, okay?
I have it already.
Okay.
Oh, you have it already? Okay,
Yep.
sorry.
Okay, great. So I don't need to put it in the chat then. Thanks.
No, not unless you want, if you want to, you can, but it's going to go in the newsletter, so. And Mark Hoffman,
Hi, Mark Hoffman, District 20.
thank you. And I guess Dolly Kildee is a guest technically, even though we'll hear from her later. Dolly,
Yes, Dolly Kildee, District 17, Liaison to the Board of Elections.
Right. And of course, I don't even know that he needs an introduction, but Michael, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Michael Tardif. I'm Communications Team Chair and Precinct Chair at Garrett Park Elementary.
Great, thank you. And I also see Justin Butler. Justin, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hey, everybody. Justin Butler, Deputy Organizing Director for the Maryland Democrats. Here to help any way I can.
Thanks, Justin. Thanks for being here. All right, did I miss any guests? Oh, sorry, James, go ahead.
Hi, Jim Michaels. I'm a precinct chair in District 16.
Great, thank you. Did I miss anybody else? All right, great, thank you. Thank you all for joining us. Hopefully we won't keep you here too long. Okay, next we'll move to the treasurer's report, and you did receive the documents in your packet. Daniel, which one would you like me to call up first?
Can you please bring up the summary?
The summary. Okay, there are 3 summaries.
Well, I want you to bring up the treasurer report. Well, the one
Narrative?
that has the one that has the MCDCC logo on it.
Okay. I have to call it out to, is that this one? I think that's this one. That one. There we go.
Yep, that's
Okay.
it. All right. Well, as of March 2nd, 2021, we currently have $5,246.80 in the non-federal account. We have $20,227.60 in the federal account. And then we have $1,806 in the admin account. That brings our total assets to $27,280.40. And then next to each, you see the ones for the previous month. And then the club funds, we have a total of $15,627.97 of club funds. Scroll down, you see that our Q4 federal report was submitted in January. And as I said, there was a request for information which has been filed. And then our next federal report is due July 31st. For the state, we did the submission. And then the next state report is due January 19, 2022. And then if there are any questions from the summary, Linda,
Sorry. You want me to put it back up? Okay, there we go.
Yeah. If there are any questions on this for the summary, from the summary, that's why we sent out the bank statement, the detailed transaction histories for every account. So the non-federal account, the federal account, and the admin account, we have bank statement for each account. With that being said, I will stop and then see if there are any questions.
Okay, you want to go to what do you want to go to next?
Well, I mean, why don't you go to the federal account and let's start with that.
Okay, I'm not sure which one that is. Let's see.
The one that's right. There you go.
Okay. Is that it?
Right. Yep.
Okay.
If you scroll down, that actually has most of our transactions. They come out of that's let's see.
That's the account summary. Hold it. It's down here further.
There you go.
There we go.
There you go. So this has a detailed transaction history that basically corresponds to the transaction, and also some of this you have you see if it's an ACH or it's a check, but it corresponds to our basically our monthly in terms of bills that we have to pay. And so most of, if not all of our transactions, not actually all, but most of our transactions are recorded in this bank statement. So what I would recommend you do, if you do have any questions about any transaction, remember, these are the Democratic Party funds. It's my responsibility to ensure that you understand what the expenditures are and how they're being done. So if there's any questions, please send me an email. But I'm so happy that, again, it's not only me. We have Joe Gephardt, who is the assistant treasurer, and we work hand in hand to ensure that you understand how we spend the Democratic Party money. Right, so I'm going to stop there and see if there's any other, if there are any questions about the bank statement.
Daniel, Norm put a question in the chat. Maybe you want to private chat him so we can keep moving, but his questions are good.
Absolutely, that's a great idea, Aaron. So Linda, I'll turn it back over to you. And
Okay, did you want to look at the balance sheet though? Did you want to show that?
yeah, we can. That's again a summary of all. It's basically a close enough summary of the summary that I just went over, which talks about in terms of our total bank deposits as of when I pulled up the balance sheet, which was March 3rd, and we had at that time we had $22,391.34.
It's going down.
Yes, it is. And then it also gives us, our total assets, which again was slightly up because of a deposit that was made. But the bottom line is, as Linda is saying, we need to make sure that given, for example, what the Finance Committee was doing, which is giving us a projection of our burn rate, like how fast are we burning down the cash we have, that usually will give all members of the Democratic Party in Montgomery County the need for us to bring in additional resources so that we could pay for the activities that we're all doing to promote the Democratic Party. So Linda, back to you.
Yeah, okay.
If I turn it to you, I don't know, Joe, do you want to say anything or?
Yeah, Joe, did you want to add anything?
Just to add a comment that I think these reports, and Daniel did them and not I, are very clear. They're simple and clear, and they give I think a clear and accurate picture of where we are. And I think that's the intent. The intent isn't to stick at $22,000 in equity and assets, but the intent is to show a very clean report that's easy for all of us to follow. So I want to thank Daniel and the others who helped on this.
Okay. Are there any other questions or comments? Michael tells me that Norm Leventhal left the meeting. So I guess he went to bed, but so I can circle back with him, Daniel, on his question. I think I can answer.
Yeah, you can provide him my email as well, just in case.
Yeah, I'll send him an email. I know him. I'll send him an email. His question's easy to answer.
Sure.
Anyway, anything else for Daniel? Okay, hearing no questions or comments.
So can I say just one thing?
Yeah, sure, Daniel.
I think our goal, as Joe was just saying, that we want to make sure we present this information so that we know where we are, and then what really the goal is to, because we have bills that are coming due that we have to pay. So I'm hoping that simplifying our financial standing would be one of, almost a catalyst for us to say, well, how do we pay the bills coming next month and the months to come? Which means I thank all those who are in the fundraising. I know they're going to be talking about that, but anything you can do as a member of this committee to contribute towards that, all of us, that would be really good. Over to you, Linda.
Thank you, Daniel. Okay, I will now accept a motion I will now entertain a motion to accept the financial report.
So moved.
It's moved by Erwin. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mimi. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, accepted. Thanks again, Daniel and Joe. Next, we'll move to committee reports. Let's go to the Board of Election reports. I'm going to call that up. And I'm going to call on Dolly Kilday to talk about this report. And then I want to say a word or two about it too. Dolly?
Okay, the first thing deals with legislation. As you know, mail-in ballots right now by law can only be open 2 days after the election. During the last election cycle, since there were so many mail-in ballots, the governor allowed the boards of election to open their ballots and process them at least 30 days before the election. So a bill has been introduced now to change the law to allow the boards to open their ballots 14 days before the election. There was some discussion among the board and whether or not they should support that legislation, and they finally decided that they would not support the legislation. And the reason being that the feeling was that people should vote on election day, and the one board member said she does not believe that we should be encouraging people to vote early. So they did not support the legislation, even though the legislation had nothing to do with when people vote. It only had to do with when the ballots would be open. One of the board members also was upset because, I say upset, but anyway, she felt she was blindsided by David Naiman testifying on some election bills, even though he did it on his own and not as a member of the board. The attorney said that there is nothing in the rules or the bylaws that said that the board has to be notified before somebody testifies. So the two bills that David did testify on, one was on changing the formula for how many early voting sites a district or a county can have. And what they're looking at is a formula that would, in my report, I say would allow us to have 13. It's not allow, we are required to have 13 early voting sites. This bill is with the Ways and Means Committee. They heard it on February 16th. And tomorrow, the subcommittee on elections will be discussing it, but I don't know if there will be a vote in the committee on it. The other bill that David testified on was the internet delivery of ballots. That also went to the Ways and Means Committee on February 16th, and that's as far as it got so far. The next thing, the election director advised that the information from the census would probably be available by September 30th. And I read since that the boundary lines for Montgomery County will probably be drawn by the end of November. And if somebody would file now to run in a district and find out after they redistrict, after they change the boundaries, that they are not in that district, they will be moved to the district in which they live, or they can move. So the only other thing was the attorney advised the board that there was a request for the video footage from all the drop boxes because someone had a concern about an elected official who supposedly violated the electioneering boundaries. So that's it.
Okay. And then, thank you, Dolly. And then here.
Oh, I'm sorry. Also, yes.
Right. This is sideways, but it's still good data. So
Yeah,
turn your head.
That's the only way I could do it.
That's
And
all
that's
right.
courtesy
It's no
of,
problem.
I asked our members of the board how I could get that information, and Alan sent that to me.
Whoops, I just lost this for some reason. Yeah, so if you get a chance, it's, you know, you can turn your head and look at it here, but if you get a chance, what's interesting to me is if you look at these numbers here, okay, can you see the cursor? I'm moving the cursor, right? And you look down here and look at how much the Republicans, just in the month of February, okay, have lost that many. They've lost 1,000, over 1,000 registered voters. So this is, as I understand it, this is, these are canceled, or, you know, people who were duplicates or died or whatever. And then they just, 92 of them transferred out of the county. But this is what's interesting, the affiliation changes. So the Democrats had 126, the Republicans had 1,004. And my understanding is that that's, you know, that's going on all over the country. It's very interesting. They're tanking. They never were, you know, terrific here. I mean, you can see now we're more than 4-1. And then Seventh State did do an article on this that I think, Michael, are we going to include that in the newsletter? We talked about maybe.
Yes, you just beat me to it.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, I recommend that you look at that when it comes out tomorrow, because you know, this is Donald Trump's legacy of the Republican Party, and it ain't getting better for them. So anyway, and hopefully it's that we're doing things that they like too. I should say that. Okay, anything else, Dolly, you want to add about this report?
No.
Okay, well, thank you. I guess a motion is in order to, oh, wait a minute. Aaron has a question. Aaron, you want to ask Dolly your question?
Let me just find a way to turn on my video for a second so you can see my face. Dolly, my question is, you indicated that it was a 3-2 vote, but this thing about absentee balloting, do you know, I'm not surprised that a Republican-led Board of Elections voted it down, because anything that makes it easier to vote harms them in a way. But I believe that there's a bill, I believe that Janelle has a bill that is making progress. Maybe I got them mixed up. But is the bill actually making progress in the Maryland General Assembly, regardless of what Shalek and company voted?
Dolly, you're muted. There you go.
And the only thing that I could find was that it was heard by the Ways and Means Committee again in January. And
Okay.
There's nothing on record as having happened since then.
Do you know who sponsored it? I'd like to read the bill after the meeting. Or you can just chat, you can send me a private chat.
I will, okay.
Linda, I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Joe.
Okay. Dolly, you mentioned that there is a 13 early vote site requirement. And is that in law currently, or is that law being proposed for legislation?
No, currently 11 are required.
Right, we only had 11.
This
in the
increases
general.
it by 2.
Okay, so we only had 11 in the general election recently. That's why. And 2 of our state legislative districts did not have an early voting site. So maybe that could be corrected.
Yeah. My guess is that it's probably the Nancy Dasick and the White Oak sites, right, that they're looking at. Is that would be 13, right? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Lori Rodich has a question. She wants to know, what does inactivated mean on that? Do you know what that means about the voters being inactivated as opposed to, you know, changing their registration? Or
Usually that's because they haven't voted in the last 5 years for 2 federal elections.
Right. So if you don't vote in 2 federal elections, you're considered inactive. And we know that from our phone banking, right? Because we usually only phone bank active voters.
What happens to inactive voters?
They eventually are removed from the rolls, right, Dolly?
Right. Yes.
Okay.
And before they're removed, though, if they're still on the rolls and they go to vote, they're still on the rolls. But if they're getting more aggressive at removing people if they don't vote to try to keep things clean. partly. All depends.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions of Dolly? Good report. So I guess we will accept the, I'll take a motion to approve the liaison, BOE liaison report. Is there a motion?
I move.
Moved by Joe, is there a second?
Second, moment.
Seconded by several. Okay, any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposition? All right, motion carries. Next, the precinct organization, Shruti. Do we have an approved list and a review list? I should know this.
Yes, I submitted a review list.
I don't see it here. Did I not pick it up?
I sent it separately. It was not included as part of Irwin.
Oh, well, then I don't have it. So
I sent it to the MCDCC list, so everybody should have.
when did you do it?
The same day when Irwin sent it within.
Oh, well, I missed it.
Can I do a screen share?
Yeah, go ahead. Wait a minute, I have to let you do it. Or Michael can let you do it.
Yeah, I can do that.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Oh, I'm just trying to, it's open. I'm trying to look for it. So, did everybody else get the review list?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, great.
I just missed it. I think I missed it because I get copied on all the reports that get sent to Irwin, and I thought that's what it was.
Yeah, she just responded to Irwin's email with the material.
Oh, okay. Well,
that's
anyway, sorry, I missed it.
Okay, so I'm doing a screen share. I hope everybody can see it.
Yes.
There is an update and correction to the review list, so I will just send this updated one to everybody today. But there is a new applicant, Lucille Wilson. There was an extra L in her name, so I removed that. She has applied to be the vice chair of this precinct in Summit Hall Elementary School. Gerald Peppers currently is the vice chair, and so you will see over here that he is moving from a vice chair of his precinct to be the chair of his precinct. And I also added Peter Henderson's name. He is currently the vice chair in precinct 13059, and he is moving up to be the chair because I was the chair and that's a vacancy right now. So he's moving up to be the chair.
Are we sure that that guy is legit, Peter Henderson?
I don't know.
Kidding. I'm kidding.
I did check, it seems so.
Okay. So can I have a motion to approve the review list?
So moved, Moomin.
Moved by Moomin. Is there a second?
Second, Daniel.
Pam.
A second, Daniel and Pam. Okay. And
Is Laura recusing herself?
Right, yes.
oh, for God's sake.
She's entitled to vote. No.
She's entitled to vote. She's like, Peter who? All right. Is there any further discussion on the review list? All right. All in favor of approving the review list signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposition? Thank you. Next, the approved list, Shruti.
I don't think there is an approved list.
Oh, there is not an approved list. Okay.
I just want to make a comment to say that there are a few people in line to be put on the list for next month. I've been having several conversations, but sometimes it just takes time. Like when we've talked to people and they wait until the last minute and they either don't submit the application or they're just sort of reviewing. But I've had several conversations. So I think in District 16 and 18, there will be more names showing up in the next one.
Great. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Shruti, for staying on top of that. And let me just say that when we get to the strategic plan, you'll see that that the precinct organization is, there's a lot there in terms of plans for the next year. And one of the things that Shruti and actually Michael Tardif and I have been talking about is putting together a Zoom monthly. We did talk monthly, right, Shruti? Zoom orientation for for new and existing precinct leaders. So that's a very exciting project. It's Shrudi's idea that she's wanted to do this for a while. And we're going to try to put it together in a presentation that we can, that we can do like every month, a quick orientation for new precinct leaders and probably a review for some of them who've been around for a while. So we hope to get started on that pretty soon. And then we are going to do an all hands meeting. We have been talking about doing that. When did we say, Shruti, May?
May. So I was
Yeah.
going to touch on these things when we get to the strategic plan, but
Okay, yeah, sure. All right, moving right along. Fundraising committee, there's no written report. Greg?
Okay, thank you, Linda. What we have, we have the committee members. I'm looking at the screen, I can't see, but I know Joe's on it, Laura, and a few other people. But the bottom line is, you just heard the report from Daniel. We need to get money in this year so that we can make sure that we can elect Democrats, but also to carry out the goals of our party. So I'll just put in a nutshell that we're planning on having this year 6 events, and we'll get more detail as they come available, unless Linda wanted to add some more to it. But the first one, we started to recruit for our forum and founders circle. And as of today, I know we have 3 of us.
More.
4. There's
No,
more.
it's 6, I think.
6, okay. And that's a good way for us to raise money. By the end of the year, with all the things we want to do, we set a goal of $45,000 just for that one. We also plan to have a major fundraiser, I would call it, with either the chair or the past chair of the National Democratic Committee. And that's something that's ongoing and we'll work with, and we'll get more details probably at the next meeting. But I'm excited about 2 other events actually that are what we call small dollars at $20 a person. One is a tribute to Harriet Tubman, and we say $20 because hopefully we'll have her on the $20 bill under President Biden before his term is over. And we're looking at about May or so for that one.
No, April 14th.
Also, we have it say April 17th.
14th.
So let's put that down in the minutes, April 14th. And we have helping us put that together, Mrs. Anita Neal Powell, who's on the Historic Society for Lincoln Park. And she also has worked with the Harriet Tubman Society. The other low dollar amount is an outdoor event. And of course, we have to all get our shots and so forth by September. And it's at the Wind Ridge Winery. And I went by there 2 days ago. Fabulous place. Actually, it's very close to where Runa Miller lives. I just wanted to put that in there. And that one we think would be very successful. And then the other 2, we have to see if we're going to do a fall ball. I saw Arthur Evans on the screen here, but that's something to be decided. But that's where we are. And as you see, we do need the funding so we can carry out our work. And we'll be working with each and every one of you, and I'll talk more about it during the objectives that we have for fundraising later at the next meeting. So Linda, did you want to add any more about who we have, or maybe not mention names for our forum, the members yet, or we just?
Yeah, well, we're trying to put together a series for the forum, and we're looking at possibly some big names for that. And I had hoped to hear today whether or not we were going to get somebody, but I haven't heard anything. So I have to go check on that, see where we are. Yeah, so the Harriet Tubman fundraiser is the one that's coming up. And in the meantime, we need to recruit for Forum and Founders Circle. Let me just mention, Norm was on this call earlier. He proposed at the last fundraising meeting, and it was accepted by the committee, that we add another category called sustaining founders. And sustaining founders would give us $1,500 for the entire cycle. So forum members are $500 a year, founding founders are $1,000, And then sustaining founders would be 1,500 for the entire cycle for 2 years. And the committee liked that idea, so they adopted it. And then I did want to recognize that we have a few Central Committee members who've already joined the forum, including Greg and myself, and Erwin, who just joined, Greg. Actually, he joined the Founder Circle, so thank you,
wow.
Erwin.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Erwin.
And we really do need people on the Central Committee to step up and join the forum. If you can't join the forum, you know, please do what you can and make a contribution. We've got to sustain the committee. I mean, you can see that our balance is going down, and that's because we're not really fundraising at the moment. So we hope to change that, and you know, the next few months, and see a big bump there. I have had conversations with Devang Shah and Bell Leong Hong, both of whom were instrumental last year in helping us reestablish the forum, and they have committed to helping us do that as well this year. I've also had conversations with Terry Learman, who offered to help us do that. So I think we'll be okay on that. We're a little bit slow off the mark. I had hoped to get to the point where we could actually have Central Committee members doing some phone banking to some of these folks to get them to give us contributions again for the forum and founder circle. We're not there yet. And if it's okay with Greg, I'm going to talk a little bit about the new donor pay service that we're looking at, if that's okay with you, Greg.
It is. The only thing I wanted to add, and then I'm finished, is that Aaron, I believe I mentioned at the last meeting, it is possible to make payments, I guess you call it. That's the way I look at it. And absolutely, yes. So that's for all the Central Committee members who want to monthly make a contribution, you can do that.
Yeah,
so
you can do a recurring contribution. Yes.
Yes. So that's all I have. And Linda, if you would talk about
thanks.
it.
Thank you, Greg, for reminding me of that. So we are looking at, I mean, right now we use a service called NGP, which is a very common, it's basically so we can take credit cards, but it also is a service that we use that helps us do our federal filings. It's connected to our federal account. You know, it's okay. It's not great. You know, all the fundraising pages that we do, like when you buy swag and stuff, we do that all off of NGP. So that's a common thing. Act Blue is another one, right? So Deepak Thacker, who is a local Montgomery County entrepreneur and has a very well-respected and reputable technology company, is starting a new service. And we are taking a look at it. Daniel suggested that we might want to look at another pay service anyway, because we want to start directing contributions into our other accounts besides our federal account. So, and we can't do that right now with NGP. All of our credit card transactions go into our federal account. So, so we have been working with Deepak Thacker. This is a new service. The good news is that we are, well, there's a lot of good news. So we're getting it on the ground floor and we're helping him shape it. And that's pretty cool because he's very amenable to what we're trying to do. The other good news is it's a lot cheaper than NGP. NGP charges us 3.5% for every transaction, and he will charge us 2.25%. So it's a lot cheaper. I think we calculated that it's going to save us about $5,000 a year, if not more. But the downside is that it is new, and we have to be very careful and cautious as we move forward on it. So Daniel, myself, and Joe and Michael Tardif have been having meetings with them, figuring out how we, what we need. And we hope to get that launched. I keep saying this week, but we hope to get that launched really soon so that we can start collecting our Forum and Founder Circle donations more aggressively. Because the problem we run into, and I know this is a little in the weeds, but it's probably worth explaining, for purposes of federal campaign limits, Montgomery County Democratic Central Committee and the Maryland Democratic Party are considered one entity. So if the Maryland Democratic Party solicits contributions of $10,000, which is the contribution limit under the federal laws, we cannot solicit more federal dollars from those donors. Okay. So if we get donations from them, they have to be either non-federal donations, i.e. going to non-federal activities, or B, administrative expenses donations, okay, that go to things like rent and, Rochelle's salary and so forth. The reason that this pay service is important is because it will allow us to direct those credit contributions into those other two accounts, which we currently cannot do with NGP unless we pay an excessive cost. Okay. So that's a little in the weeds, but it's, we're working hard to get it done, because I think when we do, if we're able to pull it off and do it, it'll make our donations easier, more streamlined, and actually make us more efficient in terms of putting out the donor pages and changing them and so forth. The software is also very easy to work with, much easier than NGP, which is a little clunky. So anyway, that's a little in the weeds, but there you are. Are there any other questions about fundraising? Again, it's my intention to ask Central Committee members to do some phone banking on the Forum and Founders Circle. I just want to get the new pay service in place before we do that in
Linda?
earnest. Yes, Aaron.
I just have a concern that I want to raise. I'm not totally dissuading you, but, and I'm sure the man is a very nice man, and it's nice that he's going to charge us less, but I forget what the percentage is, but a huge percentage of startups and new companies fail. So are we, how shall I say it, G-rated, very out of luck if he folds, and do we have a backup plan? I mean, it's sometimes better to, the phrase is it's better to work sometimes with the devil, so to speak. And so I just would want you as chair and Daniel as treasurer to consider, what we would do if this new business venture unfortunately fails, and what our backup plan would be, etc.
Yeah. So this is not a new company. Okay. His company's been around for 10 years. So it's not a new startup. It is a new service that he's offering at the behest of, he's a Democratic. I mean, he's connected to the Democratic Party. So he's doing that. He did this at the behest and with the encouragement of people like Terry Learman and Belong Hong and Devang Shaw and, people who are donors. So it's not a new company. It is a new service. So that's number one. Number two, yes, we have to be careful. So our thinking is that we're going to run them parallel for a while. So we're, at some point we could transfer all of our data over to it's called Change Tomorrow, over to Change Tomorrow. But in the beginning, what we want to do is we want to just run it for the accounts that are not now connected to NGP. So we would keep our federal money for now, our federal contributions for now in NGP pay service, and then run his parallel. We're not investing anything, okay? Like there's no investment up front. So we're not going to get burned financially. The question would be is, we have to make sure that we're on solid ground before we transfer over our donor data, and we're not anywhere near doing that yet. He'd like us to do that. And, we may get to a point someday when we do that. But in the beginning, we just want to run kind of parallel. So we would connect our administrative account and our non-federal account. We'd be able to take contributions, credit card contributions in those accounts, which we can't do now. And that's what we would do with him. And then, once the money's transferred, the money's transferred. There's no, he doesn't keep any of the money, right? Like we're not out any money. So that's what we're doing going forward.
Okay, thanks.
I mean, I don't, those of us who've looked at it pretty hard and, you know, Joe, myself, and Daniel, and also Michael, who deals a lot with putting these pages together, and he does a lot of the, you know, he does all the work in terms of designing the contribution pages and so forth. And it's our opinion that there's not a downside here for us, especially if we run them parallel. But we are being careful that we make sure we get all the safeguards we need.
Linda?
Yeah, there's a question, Erwin.
Linda.
Is it Erwin?
Yeah, can you just clarify whether you've already made the decision to begin to utilize this service or it's still under consideration?
I think we really want to try it. We really have to solve this problem about these federal contributions from Forum and Founder Circle members. And so, you know, I think we've really decided that we're going to try it, to run it parallel. I don't think that we haven't decided yet. And, you know, and I go back to the executive board, but we haven't decided yet to transfer everything over there, but to just run it parallel with the accounts that are not connected now in NGP.
Okay, thank you.
But we're not ready to do that yet. We're still going over, like, you know, the terms of service and stuff like that.
Okay, thanks.
Any other
Linda.
questions? Yes. Who said that? I can't see. I should change my view. Did somebody else have a question? Joe.
Yes, okay. My question is, it goes back to what Greg was saying. Greg, have you picked a date yet for the winery event in September?
No, we haven't. We planned first the COVID situation is one thing. The
Yes.
other is we have to go and of course talk with the owner. And so no, the answer is no, not yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're looking to do that earlier than September, Joe, if we can.
Okay, let me point out something. I got a notice that the Western Maryland Democratic Summit, which is held up near Cumberland, is going to be held on September 24 and 25. So we have about 100, typically 100 or so Montgomery County Democrats who go to that. It's a hot event in CD6. So we want to stay away from September 24 and 25.
Right.
Thank you, Joe.
Yeah, thanks. Anything else? Okay. I don't know that we need to take any action there. Okay, now, let's move to old business, and that brings us to the strategic plan. So let me see if I can call that up. And what I'm going to do here is, you know, you've all had this for a week, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask each participant, or I mean, each committee chair to go over this. But first, Laura, I don't know, Laura Henderson, again, was very instrumental in putting this together. I don't know, Laura, if you want to make some comments before the committee chairs go through their sections.
Sure. Firstly, I just wanted to say that this time working on the strategic plan, there was a sort of best practice that Linda sort of came up with the idea of, and that was not only to get the you know, all of the committee chairs working on their chapters, which I had suggested, but to bring everybody together. And what I think that did by bringing everybody together in like a 2-hour Zoom meeting was created a sense of esprit de corps and camaraderie that together we're going to update this strategic plan, that it will only be as strong as the weakest link, and that we're going to need every committee chair and committee to stand up and really, you know, update their chapter of the plan. And somehow I think that created just the right, so I wanted to thank Linda and all the chairs, because it created enough energy and momentum that it was much, much easier. I can't even begin to tell you how much easier it was this time around than it was when I worked on the strategic plan last time. So that was just, it's always nice to have things that we figure out, new best practices. And I just really, really wanted to thank every single committee for working with their committee chairs and stepping up and turning this around, because I think we're really getting to a very, very strong updated strategic plan. Thank you
Yes.
all.
And I want to give a shout out to Laura, who, as usual, worked very hard on not only coordinating it, but making sure that it was very thorough and very accurate. And, you know, she really knows what she's doing when it comes to this. And so she's just a really great resource to have when we do strategic plans. So anyway, with that said, the way I'd like this to go is, I know some people, well, two people, Juan had some changes that he submitted ahead of time, and I forget who else, somebody else had, who else had something that they had submitted?
Aaron
Aaron
had,
did,
a
right,
little
correct.
suggestion.
So, you know, we'll make note of those and make those changes as we discuss it with the chair. I did see some back and forth with Juan and Marie, but what I'd like to do is go over the plan section by section. I'm going to ask each of the committee chairs to take their section and go over it. Just spend, you know, like 5 minutes or less on it. And then we'll take questions on that section, and then questions or changes, and then we'll move, you know, we'll move through it that way. I think, I hope everybody agrees that this is a really good strategic plan. I'm like really excited about it. I think it came together exquisitely, I can't say that, very well. And I too want to thank everybody. So I'm going to start, because I'm going to start with the first part of this. Some of this was lifted from the prior strategic plan that we had. I'll tell you what parts we added. This was the discussion that Laura talked about when we had the 2-hour Zoom call. This is where this came from. This was the brainstorming of the entire group of committee chairs to come up with this. So the vision is that, you know, some of this comes from the old strategic plan. We did add the important point here in this first paragraph that you know, we also must focus on protecting and preserving basic democratic values, because we see, you know, what's happening in the country, and we felt that was important to include there. The mission is pretty much the mission we had before. We added a couple of bullet points. I think the one important bullet point that we added is right here: fair and equitable and non-discriminatory treatment for all. And then we added this last bullet point: ensuring that all citizens can vote freely and fairly. The rest of those bullet points that are in there were in our prior strategic plan. And then we added a section that talked more specifically about some goals, in particular for the 2020 election cycle. So I'm going to read through these briefly. Make sure that 2020 voters who, you know, turned out in droves to defeat Donald Trump remain energized. That's a challenge for us in 2022, because Donald Trump isn't on the ballot. And then the second bullet point, you know, we need to focus on the governor's race and the Senate race, because those are the two that we really need to highlight. There's a lot else going on in those elections, but we need to focus on those and use those as the drivers for the turnout in 2022. We need to actively include people of color, immigrants, and other minority communities. There was a strong feeling that our relationship with those communities isn't as deep as it should be. And we need to expand the electorate by focusing on registering and educating new voters. And there was a lot of discussion about reaching out to students, in addition to everybody else that isn't registered. So we're going to spend some time on voter registration. We felt it was important to strengthen the relationship with the record number of volunteers that we recruited and activated. And we felt that engaging them on issues important to Democrats was a way to keep them engaged and to help them maintain a strong grassroots involvement. And then finally, we need to really focus on fundraising, because, you know, we need to make sure we have the financial resources to do all of this. And, you heard Greg's report on the fundraising committee, and there's more in here on that. So those were sort of the sub goals of the big, mission statement that we put out. So the first section of this, again, pulling from our old strategic plan, was objective 1. And I'm going to ask Marie Mapes to talk about this just a little bit. Marie? I know Marie's here.
She must be putting the kids to bed because I've been trying to chat her and she hasn't responded.
Okay. Laura, do you want to talk about this a little bit? Because Sam isn't here either.
Why don't we wait till Marie gets back? I'd prefer that going on to the next. And
okay, if she gets back. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Okay. A lot of this is very similar to what I'll just say this. A lot of this is very similar to what we did with volunteer engagement in the last cycle. Again, with the emphasis on the diverse communities. You're going to see that throughout.
Yeah, I could say that in case she doesn't come back, that the vast majority of this is building really, really strongly on what we had last time and just updating it. So there's not a lot of dramatic changes to this.
Right.
They're rather minor from the last strategic plan.
Right. And I know that Juan Cardenas had some changes he wanted to make here. Juan, do you want to talk about those, or you want to just let I know you had some back and forth with Marie. Did you want to talk about what you wanted to do there?
No, I think we came to agreement.
Okay.
Just to leave it at what a couple of them were very small cosmetic things. So,
okay. Okay.
It's fine. And then just clarifying some language. So it's good.
Okay. All right, great. So next is objective 2, and I'm going to ask Shruti to talk about that.
Thank you, Linda. So the second objective is build and engage the precinct organization. And as the first sentence says, it is the conduit between the local party and the voters in the neighborhood. It's also the life of the Democratic Party. So it's really, really important that we have a strong precinct organization, which means that we make sure every precinct has a precinct leader. And the way we have structured this is to outline the internal and the external challenges that we have, and then the strategy and the steps that we are going to take to accomplish those. So because this is so brief, I want to quickly mention what the internal and external challenges are, because this is going to take teamwork from not just central committee members, but different stakeholders to make sure that we are accomplishing our goals. The recruitment, developing a broad-based recruitment strategy, approval, revamping the lengthy, redundant approval process for precinct leaders. And I know that the Central Committee has been working on trying to make it a shorter process so we can quickly approve new candidates who apply to be precinct leaders. What kind of an outreach strategy we can have where we can engage our diverse communities, especially as it was mentioned earlier by Linda, it means immigrant communities, minority groups, and also youth engagement. That would require us to also have multilingual volunteers. A lot of what I put in here was based off what we saw in the 2020 election cycle. And I think the last year was quite a good experiment in terms of what we should be thinking about and preparing as we move towards 2022. Accountability is a big piece of it, because if we are going to agree to doing this, then everybody really has to agree on what role they can play in helping strengthen the precinct organization. And then coordinating with the Maryland Democratic Party on messaging, information, and voter engagement plan is really important. I have been part of 3 coordinated campaigns so far and have consistently seen some challenges that we've run into. And so I think synchronizing those efforts and making sure we are on the same page, and how we did messaging last time, how we coordinated with them, we kind of reflected on that and put it into the plan to make sure that we are working hand in hand with the state party to support their efforts, as well as to make sure that they are able to support what we are doing, because ultimately all of us are working toward the same goal for 2022. External challenges include low public participation in the precinct organizations, and through the voter or volunteer engagement sessions, we did engage a lot of volunteers communication played a big role in helping us, engage Democrats to attend those sessions and then having follow-up conversation. So at this point, I do want to mention the piece that Linda talked about earlier, an idea that I presented about having volunteer orientation, precinct orientation sessions specifically so that we could have dedicated sessions where we can talk to those volunteers that participated in the last election cycle, but also express an interest in the Democratic Party, to have a conversation on what it is that the precinct organization does and how important it is for us to have precinct leaders, how they can contribute to the success of making sure we get Democrats elected in 2022. And that's why in the bullet points, we've talked about the lack of public awareness of the role. In fact, I've been reviewing some of the list of the precinct leaders that were recruited and had some conversations with them, which has sort of strengthened the belief I have, where I think people are still trying to figure out how can they be more effective in their role. So I think those conversations will really help us make sure our precinct leaders are prepared for what to expect. Approval, I already briefly touched on. Tracking is something we mentioned, making sure we are tracking what our goals are. And Michael Tardif and I were having a conversation where he really articulated something very well, which I felt is exactly what I need to communicate in this meeting. We have tried in the past to make sure that we are engaging Central Committee members also in helping recruit, but tracking in terms of having achievable goals and accountability for those. So to say that what is it going to take for us that by end of this year, we do have at least one precinct leader in every precinct and having a strategy based on that. So as an example, do we set monthly goals, make sure that everybody is responsible for recruiting certain number of people or making contact with certain number of people, and how do we take it from there? Education, we have done a really good job last time, so we have a good base to begin with, and it is just going to expand to make sure when we do these orientation sessions and when the precinct organization steering committee that represents each of the district leads are on the steering committee, when they communicate with volunteers or Democrats in their precinct or precinct leaders, that they are making sure that everybody has read and has access to these resources that we are putting together to empower them to be precinct leaders. And again, we've put together some structure here to say that, we can have one-on-one orientation sessions, not countywide, but also at the district level, continue to partner with the party for WAN trainings, providing resources, and how do we maintain the digital repository that we started so that we can continue to enhance the materials and make sure that precinct leaders don't have to come up with that on their own. We should be able to support them and say, this is what you need, just customize it to your own precinct and go ahead and use it. Recruitment is going to be a big part of this. Again, quickly, as you look at it, it talks about specific goals. How do we follow up with volunteers? How do we work closely with our, what resources we already have in place, like the MCDCC newsletter, at fundraising events, at the labor committee events, and all the different committees, whatever work they are doing, that we should always keep in mind, we need to recruit precinct leaders and communicate that at our events. And how do we work with progressive groups and other allies? Training should be an ongoing thing. We've done that in the past. We want to continue to make sure that we strengthen our training efforts, again, so that all our precinct leaders are ready to be effective. Outreach to voters is going to be a big piece of it, because we talked about right now we have the time to think about the soft gems as an example. We can prioritize and we can start reaching out to them, and what are the different things we can be thinking about doing right now. So engaging our precinct leaders through phone banking, postcard writing, and other activities so that we engage those soft gems, talk to them about what's happening, the issues, and how it affects them, so that they are aware and they are we can encourage them to get involved with the work that we are doing. Outreach to minority and immigrant communities, and outreach to unregistered voters to support voter registration are also two major things we need to focus on to make sure that we, because one of the things that came up in our conversation was, we saw this in the 2018 election, how many people support Hogan and don't see him as someone like they feel he was good enough, and so people still voted for him. And there are many in the voters in the immigrant communities who are not registered Democrats. So we need to make sure that through our messaging and through our outreach, we educate voters and we engage them so that they can support our efforts for the Democratic Party. Accountability I touched on earlier. Resources again, precinct committee to coordinate with all the other stakeholders. And then we've talked here about, there is also a correlation here in the work that we are doing. So there is some cross-referencing over here. The poll watching program was widely successful, but so making sure that when the voter engagement, the voter protection and the precinct organization work are going to be strongly connected. If we have a strong precinct organization and grow our volunteer base, then we can make sure that we can also support the poll watch or the voter protection program. So in the end, it lists all the successful outcomes over here, and it's all going to depend on how each one of us take our responsibilities seriously and make sure that we deliver what we have agreed when we accept this plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Shruti. That was very thorough. Are there any questions of Shruti? I'm not looking at the chat at the moment. I don't know what's there. Let me see.
The one thing that I want to also quickly mention, Linda, that the plan, we already have an action plan that's already started. The steering committee has been meeting every 2 weeks. And we have this event that was Linda's idea of inviting Steve Rosenthal, which is happening on March 25th.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about that in announcements. I'll make another
So that's
announcement.
sort of like our segue. Once people hear about that presentation, I'm going to kick off the orientation session, and we are going to start doing weekly phone banks so that we can make voter contact and start recruiting as well as engaging people.
Excellent. Thank you. Any questions of Shruti? It's pretty thorough. So moving on, ensuring the integrity of the vote. Joe Gephardt, do you want to talk about this a little bit? You're muted, Joe. You're muted. There you go.
Okay, as I said, a little bit. We want to make sure that every eligible vote is cast and counted through voter protection. And we want to promote a fair election, and we want to protect the right of every eligible voter to vote and ensure the integrity of the vote so that the public has confidence in the election and in voting. This goal, was our goal before I got involved with voter protection, succeeding Mark Hoffman, who I think is on the call here. And voter protection has always been dependent on working with other organizations outside the party and inside the party. So we work with precinct officials in staffing the early vote sites and the election day locations. We work with clubs to some degree. We worked with two of our state legislative delegations helped a lot on voter protection, 14 and 16. Some central committee members jumped in sort of outside their domains, like Lori. Lori jumped in and helped us in 14 in a major way. Moomin was expected to help, but he basically ran 39 for us. So Mamie helped run 14. I'm missing, I think Pam stepped up and helped in 20. And Shruti helped with the whole thing in getting us the volunteers needed to staff the early vote sites and the election day sites. We ended up, with something like 30 sites or more. And we had to staff 11 early vote sites for 8 days in a row, which was a pretty big deal. So besides working with the election boards and the other components of the party and our own central committee people and our precinct org, we work to some degree with other outside the party groups that are progressive and support our work. All of this has been done before. What we try to do this time was to change the operations. And we wanted a comprehensive plan that was actualized. And we wanted it to be very participatory. So comprehensive, participatory, volunteer organization. And what we did was we set up a program with Linda. It was basically Linda's brainchild, working with me, and maybe other people were involved with this, but to have the outdoor poll watchers be kind of the centerpiece of our general election campaign around the election day. And so we want to maintain that. And that has many components. You have to recruit a lot of people. We had 3 very large Zoom trainings for outdoor poll watchers. I think we had 100 people, more than 100 people each time for 3 times. And I remember when the state party was bragging to us that they had 25 people twice for their voter protection for the state, for their training. We were having like 300 to 400 people being trained. So it's pretty amazing. We also had a Canvas Watch program that watched the counting of the vote. That was really critical when we had a lot of mail-in voting. I don't know if we're going to have that in the future, but we should at least have a Canvas Watch group. We had hotline, 6 people on the hotline, and we have a capacity for 6. So anyway, we're going to have a hotline on voter protection, and that bleeds into voter education too. Like when can you vote? Not just how can you be, how you can stop prohibitions on voting. We also had a rapid response team on election day in case any problems came up. We had a really serious problem come up, and our rapid response team dealt with 2 problems that came up, and very effectively, I thought. Moomin and Irwin were the guys who solved problems that occurred on election day at the sites. So that was good. So anyway, we intend to sort of build into the ongoing processes of the Montgomery County Central Committee this comprehensive, participatory, volunteer-based voter protection program with the goal of assuring that everyone who's eligible can cast their vote, that they have a positive voting experience, that the election looks fair and is efficient. So that's pretty much it. In our whole, we solved a lot of problems last time, and I knew the problems were going to occur. I didn't know which ones. So that's why you have voter protection, to be on guard and to solve the problems that arise. Okay, any questions?
Anybody have any questions for Joe? This is basically, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? So we had a successful plan. We're going to try to build on it and replicate it as well as we can in 2022.
Yes.
So, okay, any questions for Joe? Okay, good. Moving on. Sorry, I keep doing that. That's bad. I'm not adept at my laptop in terms of moving the cursor. Sorry about that. Close your eyes while I page through this so you don't get nauseous. After voter protection, the next one is, come on.
Number 4.
Number 4.
What is number 4?
I'm waiting for till I get there. I have it here, but
Digital communication.
digital communications. All right. Jeez. Let's see. All right, here we are. Next is digital communications. Michael.
All right. I just found out the one thing I can't do as the host is spotlight myself.
Can I spotlight you?
I don't know. Maybe you can try. In short, what we plan to do is continue to do what, oh, there you go. Thank you. Continue to do what we're doing. Keep trying to do it better all the time. But my overriding #1 goal is to increase our subscriber base and our readership. We went from 2018 to last July, we went from roughly 8,000 subscribers to the newsletter. We increased that to 52,000. As of today, we are at just under 45,000. That attrition is normal. And the list that we got that, you know, bumped us way up to 52, as I've mentioned before, was not a clean list. We had a number of Republicans on that list, probably between 3,000 and 5,000 who
Yeah, those
unsubscribed
Republicans are
themselves.
now Democrats, apparently.
Yeah, apparently. So the newsletter worked. So those folks unsubscribed themselves and sent me a lot of nasty messages. But and when I put that goal in the draft plan, and Laura got back to me and after reviewing it and said, do you have a plan for how to achieve that number? And would you like to include that information in the strategic plan? And I said no and no. And the reason is that, you know, the last time, it's very difficult to get email lists. And the last time the way it happened was through a series of conversations. And it started with planting the flag and saying that we wanted to get to over 50,000. And that planted a seed in certain heads, and conversations started happening. And there was no, you know, sort of strategy to it so much as it was forefront of people's minds. And I think at one point there was a very important conversation between Linda and Sam Hubbard, who was then at the state party. And I think Shruti was part of those conversations as well. And we were able to shake the tree and get Sam to share with us a list of volunteers that had come from the Trone campaign. So that's why that list was unclean, as I said. So I imagine the same thing's going to happen. 3 years later, I know a lot more people and I can make a lot more phone calls, and I'm just going to continue to do the same thing, just try to shake the tree. And I'm confident we can get there if we do that. And, you know, regardless of the reason I'm so obsessively focused about that is because regardless of the quality of our communications, it's only as good as our ability to reach people. And I think our very, strong numbers, just below 50,000 in the last election was really, really key to getting the word out on a number of issues. And it showed in terms of the open rate on the newsletter and the click-through rate for important things like the vote by mail ballot application, which was our second highest click-through rate ever back in July. And also, I think we had, our ability to affect the results of the ballot questions was directly connected also to how many people we could reach, including the messaging, of course. But the fact that we were able to reach so many people, and there were probably over a dozen town halls that we were able to feature in the newsletter that were all very well attended, and the numbers were key. So again, that's my laser focus. After I submitted my draft, Shruti mentioned we had a conversation, and that there was a discussion about recruitment that led to a discussion about succession planning. And if I had thought of it before, I would have added it to the strategic plan. And if you're still taking edits, I may still, but we really need to build out the team. The number of things that I have been doing and since 3 years ago keeps growing. Brad German helps with the newsletter, but at the end of April, he's moving behind enemy lines to Cleveland. And so I'm going to lose him as my newsletter helper. Aline is helping with social media. But it's getting to the point where if I get hit by a bus, nothing's going to happen with communication. So that's very uncomfortable. So I want to build out the team and get, 3 or 4 people so that I have somebody who can help with the newsletter, with the website, with database management, and a couple of other things I could dream up, Zoom meetings. And we've tried to put notices in the newsletter to recruit people. It hasn't been very successful. Again, I think this is going to be person to person, one conversation to another. If you're all aware of that and you know people who have, I need good digital skills, and I need good language skills, verbal skills, people who can write reasonably well. And people don't necessarily have to have experience in things like WordPress and MailChimp, but they have to have the affinity for the technology. If they have the affinity and the aptitude, I can teach them anything. Finally, one other thing is, we've learned as we've been running Zoom meetings, we've learned more and more about how to run them well. And we're getting a lot of very positive feedback from elected officials about, unsolicited feedback from elected officials about the quality of our events. And I'd like to, and we're also now supporting a couple of clubs, the D15 Caucus and the Leisure World Democratic Club, and Up County Dems are having a meeting, which is a coalition of clubs and caucuses. And so I'd like to start transferring that knowledge to the clubs and caucuses to help them with their Zoom events. One thing I'm very concerned about, and Dolly, if you're still on the meeting, I'm talking to you. There are several clubs, 3 in particular, that are publicly distributing their Zoom login information in an email, and there's a risk of getting Zoom bombed when that information is sent out that way. And just setting up a registration site and then providing the login information by auto reply email greatly enhances security because the people have to identify themselves at least by email address in order to receive the login information. So I'd like to help the clubs kind of, close that gap, that security gap. Rockville Mid-County, and Marilyn, I think you're on the call still as well. So perhaps we could have a conversation about this sometime. Bethesda, Chevy Chase Breakfast Club, and District 18 Breakfast Club. So I'd like to help them tighten that up. And then finally, as we're coming out of COVID, there's going to be an expectation that meetings that are held in person are also available on Zoom. And it's a reasonable expectation when you think about it. And I'm researching what needs to be done in order to be able to successfully provide the ability for people to attend live meetings by Zoom. The technology keeps getting better and less expensive, and actually it only takes a couple of laptops and iPhones to pull it off. But that's something that I'm expecting in 2021. We're gonna have to be focusing on. So again, something I will need some more help with. So that's it.
Okay, any questions for Michael? I can't see because I have my screen share up. Can you see people?
I have a comment.
Okay, Laura has her hand up, and Joe, you go first, then Laura.
Okay. I want to compliment Michael on the 50,000 person newsletter, more or less. And I see a relationship, having worked in a recent general election and having experience previously in election work. We got 420,000 Biden-Harris votes in Montgomery County. And so that's over 400,000. And we got almost 300,000 votes for our position on the ballot questions. And I think this huge newsletter, list of 50,000 helps inform the voters, helps them feel more comfortable with the Democratic Party and what we're saying, builds our credibility. So I think there's a direct relationship between the newsletter list and the votes we're getting, the huge Democratic votes we're getting. It's my comment. Thank you,
Joe. And I've said this before, but I really think if we get to 100,000, given the size of the county in the state, if we can reach 100,000 Democrats every week, we run the table statewide. And so that, again, is why I'm focused on that goal.
Yes, you are. You're right.
Okay, next I have Laura, then Erwin, then Shruti. Laura?
Michael, thanks for a great presentation and all of your phenomenal work that you know, helps us every step of the way with all of our goals, But you mentioned that that Sam shared the list of volunteers from the Trone campaign, and I didn't realize, were most of the new emails that you got when you went from the 8,000 or so to 50 some thousand actually directly from Trone campaign volunteers?
No, indirectly. It came through the state party.
Through the state party.
So the Trone campaign had shared those with the state party, and they shared that list with us.
Okay.
Now,
okay.
The
Just
state
curious.
has a lot of data, state party has a lot of data that they won't share with us. And that's another story, but we're
Yeah.
trying to punch through that wall too.
Yeah, because I think, you know, it sounds as if we could even come up with certain advocacy strategies, because I think getting to 100,000 is a fantastic goal. And just one other quick question is, have you already tapped into all of the Democratic clubs, caucuses, and groups throughout the county to make sure that they've shared their email lists with us?
Not yet. It's a function of available time, and I just haven't had time. But
yeah,
you know, with this
Okay.
goal foremost in mind, that's what I plan to do.
Right.
Yeah,
No,
that's a good
I
idea.
think it's a great goal, so I commend you.
Oops, you just got muted. Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Thanks, Laura.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, Erwin, you're next. Erwin? Just lost Erwin.
I was just looking for my mute. Am I still there?
Yeah, you're there.
Yeah. No, I want to reinforce everything that Michael has said and what we have in the strategic plan for this section. I think it's really dynamite. But the point that I want to reinforce is that we should really think of this, you know, as totally central to our organizing strategy. And I think, you know, there is room for improvement in how we further do that. But we can't do it only relying on Michael to do it all. You know, it's easy to think of good ideas and it's hard to execute. We all know that. And I co-chaired the committee for a brief period with Michael, and I tried to help. And what I was trying to do, but I didn't have the time to do it or the technical skills, was to do more in the interactive social media digital world. And you know, Michael did say that he has it in the strategic plan, but I just want to reinforce that because the newsletter is very strong. I think it has been, you know, central to our success. I think we can do more in expanding the list. When we had a discussion about the strategic plan 2 years ago, around that time, we had a meeting with Gabe Albornoz soon after the elections, and we talked about the problem of individual candidates developing incredible lists and then never sharing it with the party. And so we had one massive success in gaining this data through the state party, but there's still a lot of other lists out there, for instance, from the county council primary elections that I don't think we've ever been able to get access to. And I think if we were able to spend a little more time talking to, you know, the individual candidates or going back to work with Gabe, who offered to help, I think there's the potential to expand the email list. But there's a whole nother level that we can get to if we figure out a way to bring in people on Twitter and Facebook. And I think that's such an important part of the political arena, is the social media. And, you know, not Michael's fault at all, but that I think is this part of this piece of the puzzle where we're weakest on. And I appreciate, you know, what Michael is doing, but I think it'd be great if we could all think about, you know, a few more people to join the team. And what I would suggest is part of that should be a way to really integrate, you know, our organizing into an active social media digital strategy. It's an unbelievably inexpensive and effective way to reach people. Look at the effort we went to raise money for that one mailing for the ballot questions, right? It's so insanely expensive to do one single mailing. And there's a lot of mileage that I think we're missing out on in terms of targeted Facebook, Twitter, and other types of social media outreach.
Yeah, and of course, it is very easy to do all those things, but the limiting factor is available time. And if you want to do it well, it has to be done consistently. And that's the big issue. So that's why it's so important to build out the team. I just lost another train of thought. I forget what it was. Oh, the campaigns. It's really, really hard to get political campaigns to turn over their lists. The campaigns understandably regard their email lists as liquid gold. and they're very, very reluctant to share it. And of course, these are email addresses of people who have either volunteered or donated to their campaigns. And once they let go of it, that information is potentially available to their competitors, right? I mean, that's the way they view it, whether it's accurate or not. It's the way they view it. And I did have conversations with candidates, primary candidates in the 2018 election who I thought would be most receptive or who I knew the most well, and I got nowhere. So I wasn't going to try with people I didn't know as well. But anyone who has connections to candidates who have run in the past and who may not be running again, and you can help make that ask, I would really appreciate it, because this is the way it's going to happen, person to person.
Trudy.
All right. Well, Michael, sorry, I wouldn't know anybody who's run in the past, but I will say.
What about your list, Trudy?
Sure. Well, I will say the Maryland Democratic Party did have access to all the campaigns list, is what I was told, that they
Really?
did that and yes, because I had that conversation with Sam Hubbard. But let me start by saying, first of all, thank you, because I think your work has been incredible. And I know for a fact that when people read the quality of the newsletter that is going out, how informative it has been. I've heard from several people how informative it's been, and they feel they know what the Democratic Party is doing. So it draws support for the Democratic Party in several ways, but it has certainly helped us engage people. When I did phone banks last time, I saw firsthand how many new volunteers signed up because of the newsletter and participated in those phone banks. So it is extremely important that we grow that list. And I agree with you that it has to do with a lot of one-on-ones. We all have a network. We all know people. They are not all plugged in. They don't all have, they still do not go to the website and know about a newsletter. I have been having conversations with some neighborhood folks as I've been talking about recruiting, and they didn't have, they were not getting the newsletter. So I've been telling my friends and everybody, please sign up, because there's a lot of good information there. And in the last election cycle, we engaged people when we were talking about ballot questions, and now there is redistricting. So again, when I read the newsletter, I see how much good stuff is going in there. And I think even if we just tell our friends that there is all this information that will help you stay on top of what's happening, I think can help. But one other comment I had was we might want to think about how we can get some tech savvy youth to be your support team and sort of help you with what you were talking about earlier. And I will certainly brainstorm and think about anybody I can recommend. But
I need a couple of tech savvy nerds who like to read.
Yes.
And if I could get that, it'll be great.
Michael, this is Aaron. I have a comment, if I may.
Go ahead, Aaron.
Go ahead, Aaron.
So my comment is that, and I don't know, and I'm not tech savvy like you. I can understand somebody, like, I'm just gonna pick a politician out of a hat. Kathleen Dumais not wanting us to get her list, or Andrew Friedson because they have to keep going to the trough to solicit. But when there were 33 candidates that ran for county council at large, so that means 29 were unsuccessful, basically, or 28 were unsuccessful. So I don't quite understand the hesitancy if a candidate came up short. So maybe I would start with the unsuccessful candidates.
That's what I did.
Not people that are going to have to go to the trough again and again, unless they want to give it a second try, but that can't be all 33 people.
Well, that's what I did. I mean, I didn't speak to anyone who was elected, assuming that, their lists were going to continue to be liquid gold to them. And I spoke to 4 unsuccessful campaigns. And like I said, I got nowhere. And I agree with you. I don't understand why they wouldn't let it go. But I'm encountering the same thing over and over and over again. So again, I think it comes down to the 2 examples you mentioned. Just like Kathleen Dumais, she might share her list. Andrew Friedson, no way. I mean, I just know that from knowing the individuals. But that's the kind of knowledge you need to have. You need to, know the person well. you have to have a relationship, and it has to be a relationship of trust. And, you know, I've gotten to know a lot more elected officials over the last 3 years, but I'm not in the inner circle.
Well, the other thing though is that somebody like, just very briefly, like an Andrew, has to, you know, they may not give us their list, but if you look at their reports, their yearly reports, they have to list the name and addresses of all their donors. And so if we have more information, like someone's address, we might be able to use some of the information in the report to discover emails, but maybe that's just my wishful thinking.
Yeah, that's challenging. When you start to say that, I thought, wow, if those reports include email addresses, that would be great. But that's the key piece of information that we need about everyone, and it's the hardest piece to get. I mean, this is all really, really helpful feedback, and I think probably the most important thing is that we're having the conversation, and I hope all of you will be thinking about it and coming up with additional ideas, because one of them is going to hit, or one or more of them are going to hit, and that's how we're going to get there. So thanks for all that.
Daniel has his hand up, by the way.
Yeah, Daniel.
Yeah, just going to be brief. Again, in the midst of or during this time of pandemic, Michael, we all know how of an invaluable service that not only the newsletter has been in raising money for many, many, many things. So first of all, I mean, as the treasurer, I really want to thank you for your speed to create all those pages as the donations come in. The question I have is that I don't know if you did you try like some kind of a was it like a group with the students members, and as a way of really getting them on board? Did you try that, and how did that go?
Aline, if you want to come on and talk about that a little bit. There was a very small but enthusiastic group last summer, and you know, students move on quickly, so it didn't sustain itself for very long. But I'm always open to that. I mean, if we can get that up and running again, I'd be happy to do that too. You know, any resources that we can garner would be really helpful. And it's a big part of it. Some of this stuff is, like I said, is techie, nerdy stuff, but what drives me is connection to mission. You know, what I'm doing, the techie stuff, like I'm editing the newsletter while we're having this meeting. And it's mind-numbingly boring, but the technical part, but you know, it means that another newsletter goes out and all these events get promoted. And so, you know, you have to realize that the effort you're making has a goal, even if it's, you know, it doesn't fill your soul to to correct the font and the spacing and stuff like that. So,
okay, I'm gonna exert executive privilege.
Sure. Thanks, everyone. I really appreciate.
Thank you, Michael, for all of this and for what you've done, obviously, and the way you're thinking about the future and the plans for the future and going forward. You know, I mean, everything everybody said. You know how much we rely on this as part of our strategy. So, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to move on to the next section, which is labor. Lori Rodich.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you, everybody. Did everybody hear Joe Biden talk about collective bargaining agreements and how important they are and how valued they are?
Yes.
Yes. And so that's, I think, where our labor committee is going to take Joe up on his kind words and talk and emphasize collective bargaining agreements. That it's a challenge in that the labor sees that if they have volunteers, they don't know why they should give them to the Democrats. So we have to work on that challenge. But generally, democratic values and labor values are the same issues, the same values. And so we want to be able to emphasize that. And also when you talk about diversity, labor unions cover every group. We're sort of an overarching group that there's a lot of clubs and caucuses that are specialized, and they're in our bailiwick. We have members in all those areas, so it's a real strength to be able to take advantage of that. What we want to do in terms of concrete steps is have meetings with Central Committee and the members of the Labor Advisory Committee to show them what labor is, because not everybody's familiar with unions the way Dolly is, or I am, or some of the other members are. Linda, yes, Linda, and so that's one of the things that we're going to try to do, and then take it to the forum members, the founders, and show them that that unions are also part of the community. It's not just a business community. It's not just a labor community. We're all part of the democratic community, and we make each other stronger. Last year we had 3 very successful programs for workers with they were public. We had a lot of attendance, so members of the unions went to them, and that exposed the Central Committee as sponsors to union members, and that increased our exposure, which is a good thing. So I am definitely going to ask your dad about your dad, Michael, because he was with SEIU. Woo! And then the last thing is we're gonna work on. We have a meeting this Friday. We're going to start working on how we want to do these education programs. We want to have these meetings, and then ongoing we have meetings with individual elected officials, and we're going to keep that up. Because when an elected official meets with Democrats, that's good. When a Democratic official meets with SEIU or MCEA, that's good. But you get an elected official with the Democratic Party, with 5 or 6 unions, representing thousands and thousands and thousands of voters, because we're activists. As Democrats, we're activists. As labor people, we're activists. So this meeting with Steve Rosenthal is going to be awesome, because it really is going to promote that value. And what's the successful outcome? Well, we've already received a successful outcome every time this committee has supported one of the initiatives that we've brought in front of it. And we really, it's MCDCC recognizing the role of organized labor as part of the America's recovery and supporting it as you have done so far. That's going to be a continuation of a successful program.
Okay, thank you, Lori. Any questions for Lori and the Labor Advisory Committee? That thing keeps humming along, right? So great, and it's grown too. Not only is it humming along, but it's grown. We've added members there. Dolly's also a member of that committee. Next is fundraising. Greg?
Yes, I think Aaron put in that he needed to go. He wanted to go next.
Who?
Aaron, I think he's
Aaron. Oh, yes, I'm sorry, Aaron. Yes.
That's good.
Yeah, let's skip down to Aaron. So what we did was we did not have the issues committee in our last strategic plan. So that and partnerships we put together at the end as kind of new initiatives. So Aaron, do you want to just talk briefly about the issues committee and what the role is going to be there?
Yes, and I want to thank my brother from another mother, Greg Weems, for his kindness. I've worked with him for years, and he's the best. But what I found, and what Linda and I found, and Erwin too, is that with all due respect to Arthur and the delicious dinners that the Marriott prepares for us, people don't get involved in the Democratic Party for the chicken or the souffle for dessert. What drives people to the Democratic Party is a passion on issues. And we believe that by engaging in issues, we will draw people to the table. And some of this was based on circumstances. I'll get into that in a minute. But one of my Catholic friends told me, with her son asking her for money all the time, it was Palm Sunday every Sunday. And I've heard that joke about the Central Committee, that when people hear from the Central Committee, it's because they want people to empty their wallets. So this is a way to engage people in issues that they're passionate about, where we're not asking for money, but we are supporting things that are consistent with the Democratic Party platform. We are going to have forums and about issues to educate people. We are going to, instead of always playing defense with Robin Ficker and the Republicans, we are going to work with the county council and county executive to make sure we have proactive charter amendments to make our county an even better place. And we are, let's see, let me look. I didn't memorize everything, so let me just click. Oh, and we're going to canvass voter issues. We're going to look at what matters to voters, and we are going to base some of our work on that. And as much as I love working with Linda and Uncle Irwin, we're going to try and get people that are beyond the MCDCC to engage in the issues committee, because as we all know, politics impacts people's lives acutely, particularly on the local level. And what we've been able to do is, in my time as chair of the issues committee, not this term, but we've been able to help the Maryland General Assembly restore voting rights for ex-felons. We've been working on we sent a letter about the White Oak voting site and the state song. And so we've done some really good things. But the issues committee is basically a subtle vehicle for engagement, and we need to step it into high gear because, again, issues are what is going to get people to keep coming back and passionate about what we do. And once they're passionate, maybe they'll give.
Yes, there's that. Are there any questions for Aaron? So, basically what we're talking about here is expanding the role of the issues committee. And as Aaron said, going outside and bringing in some people to help us get excited about issues, as well as the idea of canvassing voters. That's a new idea too. Any questions for Irwin? I'm sorry. I always do that, don't I? Aaron.
That's okay, Marjorie. I appreciate it. The hour's late. And I just want to briefly say before I have to go that I really appreciated Lori's report, because I've living here my whole life, ever since I was a little tyke. Lori and David have been a power couple for labor, organized labor, and done so much for our brothers and sisters in the movement. So tonight's discussion, all of you has been really exciting.
Yes, thank you. And Aaron, let me just note, Aaron, that I noted your change about adding disabled.
Yes, on page 3, it seemed to list every other marginalized group.
Right. How do you want to say that? Disabled community, or what do you want to say?
Well, read me the sentence again to refresh my.
Well, I can do it offline. Let's do it offline.
I would just say people with disabilities.
People with disabilities. Okay.
Yeah, that's the preferred language.
All right. I'll send you the language. Okay. Thank you. All right. Next, let's go back to fundraising. Greg.
Okay.
Anything you wanted to add?
Yes, and Aaron and all the others have given such great reports. I can just summarize mine by first saying fundraising does not occur in a vacuum. That means it is all of us working together. And as Linda reported earlier during my fundraising committee report, that we're going to ask each of you as Central Committee members to make a few calls. I know sometimes it's uncomfortable to call to ask, but we want to get 100% of that to help us. The one thing I do want to emphasize, and I think from all the other reports that have come in, this says is all, like the Central Committee has not established effective cases why donors should fund a local party. And I think now with this strategic plan, and also with all of us having a very successful campaign to get rid of Trump and on the ballot questions, that question now has been eliminated for the most part. And I think we continue to work just like Michael with his newsletter and so forth, where we can now go to donors, all of us, and ask for funding for our programs. And I believe we will be very successful in the upcoming year. As stated earlier, our goal for this year is $75,000. And the previous report, I don't have to go over it again. We listed the various events that we will be having. And I feel confident with all of us working together that we will meet that goal. And part of it is because of what we have, as I said earlier, with us letting the voters know, let the Montgomery County Democratic voters know what we're doing and why we're doing it, and Erin so eloquently stated that to us. So with that, I think we'll be talking. Oh, and the last thing I want to say is, I'm not sure if this is the first time because I'm new sort of to the Central Committee, but we have a lot of members on the fundraising committee now. And I feel very confident with the leadership that we have from our Central Committee that we in fact will be able to meet our goals. And then the very last thing, and that's as we said, the fall ball or whatever, we don't know. So we have to continue to work through that for this year. But if we do, I know that the Marriott's been secure. And I know that we all hope that we can meet in person, and we can also work towards getting a Democratic governor next year. And that's one of the things that I like to say as I talk to the new forum members and the founding circle members is Montgomery County is suffering right now because we don't have a mass vac site. Everyone's going to Baltimore and Six Flags. With a Democratic governor, if another pandemic happened, which we think and pray that it won't happen, our Democratic governor will know that Montgomery County cannot be ignored and that we should have that for the safety of our people. So with that, I have in my report.
Any questions of Greg? Okay, great. Okay, and then as I said, you know, the way we ended this report was we ended it under this title, Ongoing Efforts to Engage Activists Ahead of 2022, and the Issues Committee report, the Issues Committee goals that Erin went over were also in there. So the new area we have here is one we call partnerships, and that has to do with clubs and caucuses and affiliated groups. I'm going to ask Pam Luckett to talk about that a little bit.
All right, good evening, everybody. I guess I'm what stands in between this and being done.
No, so. Nancy Navarro. We have to do Nancy Navarro.
That's but right, anyway,
Nancy. Okay, so I will try to move swiftly. I will move swiftly through my information. So we've talked a lot about just voter engagement, how we get people, how we keep people, how we engage them. And the clubs and caucuses offer another opportunity. Currently, we have 27 active clubs and caucuses. 24 are clubs and 3 are caucuses. And these can be a natural transition in a way for people who are outreached by voter engagement, by precinct officials, and by Central Committee members. And it's just another way to keep volunteers tied into the Democratic Party. And what we do know is that we need to have multiple ways to engage volunteers. Everything doesn't appeal to everybody. So this is just one more opportunity. You know, our clubs and caucuses cover a vast array of populations. We have our district clubs and caucuses. We have our geographic clubs like the Germantown Club, and we have the president of that club with us this evening, Andrew Saudry. We have our LGBTQ Dems. We have our African American, Latino, and Asian Pacific American Democratic Club. We have our Green Democratic Club. We have our Women's Democratic Club, and we have our Young Democrats. So we've got something that appeals to a variety of folks there. And, you know, we're open to looking at new clubs being formed if needed. So part of the mission that Linda shared earlier for the Central Committee that is part of the strategic plan is in encouraging the values of the Democratic Party includes fair, equitable, and non-discriminatory treatment for all, and promotion of inclusivity and diversity. And the structure of the clubs and caucuses we have right now really, really speaks to those issues. And I will go out on a limb here and say all of our clubs and caucuses are great. All of our groups are great, but there is an elephant in the room in terms of the missing number of minority members in those groups. And I don't think it's because people don't want to be in the groups. I think we need to connect with them, but some of it is just awareness and seeing how can this help me? How can this help me in my community? How can I support my party in that way? You know, some of our clubs are very active and have lots of activities, and others not so much. They need support. And so Michael shared in his presentation that we've got roughly 45,000 people that subscribe to our newsletter. So just imagine if 1 or 2% of that population got involved in a club or caucus, what that would do to boost the sustainability of those groups, but also help to boost the party. So the Partnerships Committee has 3 specific goals, which you see there on the screen. The first one, strengthening the bond and building unity between the Central Committee and the Democratic clubs and caucuses. And what that is, if you sum it up, is building trust. We've talked a lot about the things that we want to do, but some of this is just building trust, again, with the clubs, the caucuses, and with the community. So one of the things we want to do is we want to begin to hold quarterly meetings to hear from the clubs on a regular basis, just to hear their ideas, what type of support they need from us, help them increase their membership and lift their profile in the community. And, you know, we had some great ideas that we talked about, I'll reference later, that have come from the reports of the other committees. We want to have them see the Central Committee as value added for their groups, like by offering things like news blasts, workshops, and information on things like compliance and finances and club sustainability. So Daniel and I have talked, and at the end of this month, we're going to be offering a meeting for the clubs and caucuses to just to help them with their finance, to understand the rules and everything and what's going on with finance. And again, going back to Michael's presentation, Zoom training would be something that the clubs need very quickly. And so those are the type of things that we want the clubs to see and caucuses to see, that there is a link, a true link, not just that the Central Committee is somewhere out there. And that'll also include participating in their meetings at least once a quarter. And then we want to be able to, and I have to give a shout out to Lori Rodich, who did give me this idea. So that each month we'd like to invite a chair to one of our meetings as a guest of honor and let them give highlights about their club's activities. And so again, we want to not only help engage voters, but we want to help sustain voters as active and productive members of the party year round. We want to kind of dispel the myth that, you know, we hear from the party at election time. So we want to be part of that narrative, and the clubs, again, and caucuses present an opportunity for that. And then quickly, the last 2, we want to help them develop organizational sustainability. In the process, I know Michael is working on that, and cleaning up the database and understanding which clubs are active and whether or not they need to be dissolved. And I'd like to say dissolved or reorganized. Some of the clubs and caucuses just need the opportunity to have some life breathed into them. I just saw Erwin do a big yawn, so I'll hurry up. We want to assist them again in developing annual goals and plans if they need that, and identify, as I mentioned earlier, opportunities to develop new clubs. And one of the things, even with the sustainability, we talked about the importance of social media that is really, really engaging, not just a Facebook page, but a Twitter or Instagram or any of those things. And so one of the things that, we can try to do is help the clubs identify members within their own ranks that can do that can be trained by Michael, that can work with him. So it's not just on the central committee, but that's something that they have in-house that helps to build sustainability. And finally, quickly, an annual recognition program for the clubs and caucuses of the year. And this would be different from the regular awards that we give that a club or caucus might win. This would be specifically geared toward the clubs and caucuses. And highlight one each month in our newsletter by proactively soliciting information from them. And then finally, one thing really, 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 in terms of partnerships, one of the things that we talked about that we need to flesh out more is looking at other organizations that are not political in nature, but that could be partners with us in terms of some of the things that all the committees said that they want to do, but also ways, again, to engage people who then may look at the party as an opportunity or a way to further engage in the committee and the community. And that's the end of mine.
Great, thank you. Shruti, did you have something?
Yes, I will keep it very brief. I can follow up with you offline, Pam, but I have a couple of quick comments, which is just, I know that you know this, but when I hear that as someone who is a caucus leader, has been a caucus chair, that there is a big distinction between the way the clubs work and are connected to the Democratic Party versus how the caucus is. And just in terms of the membership, the caucus membership is limited to precinct leaders and current and former elected officials who live in that district. So it's limited membership. And I can talk more about what we've done in District 18 to just engage and expand so that welcoming more people to our meetings, which has been easier to do with Zoom, but has been a challenge in the past. So I think that I have a few comments that might help us sort of think about how we can be more effective in engaging clubs, which I think are more disconnected than caucuses are. And last thing is, all our caucus leaders are part of the steering committee. So we do make that effort to make sure we are passing on information from the Democratic Party down. So I'll just stop at that, but we can talk offline.
Yeah, and thank you for that. I will say though, participating in a caucus myself, that all caucuses are not created equal.
Right.
And so while you may have that experience, there are others that are literally struggling in the dust. And so this is a way to help both groups, instead of making them so very separate. Certainly they're separate by nature and maybe by membership, but the need to be sustainable and grow is there.
Absolutely.
I welcome having a conversation with you offline.
Yeah, great. Anything else for Pam? Okay, great. Well, listen, I know that was long, but I did want everybody to talk because these folks have given this a lot of thought and a lot of effort went into this. This is not like a one-off thing that they did. And so I think it's important for all of us to be committed to this as we move forward. So, so are there any other questions, comments, changes to the strategic plan before we adopt it? Yes, Lori.
Yeah, weren't we going to go back and have the voter, the first thing that Laura said, wait till she finishes putting her kids to bed and have her talk about it?
Yeah, well, yeah, that's the volunteer engagement. I'm told that Marie is still not here, so I don't know what happened to her. Laura, I think, indicated that, this is basically the same program that we had in 2018, 2018 through 2020, which is, in a nutshell, the volunteer engagement sessions.
Okay.
She's not here and Sam's not here. Sam is now the new co-chair. You'll recall that Jasmine used to be the co-chair of that committee. So neither one of them are here, so it makes it difficult for us to discuss it. I think Laura hit the highlights of it, and I think we can leave it at that.
Yes, I could just briefly say to respond to Lori that the successful outcomes section has of course been significantly updated, that section, and also Marie and Sam, who are now co-leading this volunteer engagement committee, sort of streamlined it a little bit, and there had been sections referring to the labor committee. There had been a section referring to work done with the precinct org. And because we thought Linda and I and also Marie and Sam thought that was a little bit duplicative to talk about all the ways that the voter engagement committee related to other committees, some of those sections came out. So their write-up is a little shorter, but it is, I would say, about 85% what was in the strategic plan last year, and just has been kind of updated and refined a bit.
I think that's the best we can do right here with that tonight. So, all right, are there any other questions or comments about the strategic plan? I again want to thank everybody that participated in the discussions on this. And then, you know, we all need to work on it going forward, okay? And we need to keep it in mind. You know, there were other people that participated in the discussion. You know, Mimi was there, the executive committee was there, but the work on this, so the work on this was a lot of people, and I do appreciate it. So Michael has put in the chat that, what are you asking there, Michael? That the strategic plan be accepted as amended verbally tonight, so that
In
I
other
can.
words, the things that I spoke about that are not.
Oh, in your
my
section?
Yeah.
In your section? Okay.
And we have a
That's fine.
recording of this meeting, so. You know, we
Right.
have a
So you're talking about like expanding the team.
expanding the team, you know, helping the clubs.
Okay.
Hybrid Zoom meetings, that stuff.
Okay. All right. And then we're going to make that change with respect to adding people with disabilities that Erwin asked for. And Juan has talked to Marie.
Aaron. You'll learn eventually.
I'm sorry, Aaron, that Aaron has asked for. You're both your names begin with the vowel.
Yes.
It's not even the same vowel, but it's a vowel. So I don't know why I do that. I do that all the time. So yes, Aaron asked us to add people with disabilities, and then Juan had a conversation with Marie about his changes, and I have those, so I can look at the typos on those. And maybe between Michael, Laura, and I, we can work on this a little bit and get it in shape, because we do want to submit it to the state party once we adopt it. So hearing no more discussion, I will now accept, I will now take a motion to adopt the strategic plan as presented to you. Is there a motion to do that?
Motion to adopt, Lori.
Lori moves to adopt. Is there a second? Seconded by Pam. Is there any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? All right, thank you all very, very much. Now the hard work begins, because we have to implement it, right? Okay, great, excellent. And we will get this to Michael Baird at the state party. And just so you know, I have asked Michael if we can, Michael Baird, if we can share the strategic plans of all the central committees, and maybe even have a meeting of central committee chairs to discuss it, because it's one thing for us all to do is a strategic plan. I think it would be really useful to like put it all together. And I would love to showcase what we're doing here. I really would. I'd really like to, you know, talk about, you know, what we've done and how that worked, and, you know, how we feel about going forward, and the lessons we've learned. So hopefully he'll take me up on that. I'm going to push for it, and I hope that it happens. So moving on, I've lost my copy of the agenda somewhere here. Moving on to the next item, which was roles and responsibilities. I'm not sure I'm going to go back to that again tonight. I might save that for another meeting if that's okay. People are getting pretty tired. And we have a lot of things in front of us. I do want to get though to new business, which I added to the agenda, which is the statement about Nancy Navarro that I distributed earlier. So I'm going to share that on the screen. There were a couple of edits that people wanted to make to it. Susie Kaplan wanted to add a sentence at the end that said that we stand for inclusivity and I forget what it was. We stand for inclusivity and equality or something. You know, I don't know whether if we want to add that, I can add that to the statement after we adopt it, if that's okay with everybody. And then Laura suggested that we change one word where it talked about microaggression.
Behavior.
Yeah, well, let me just read it. The Montgomery County Democratic Central Committee stands in solidarity with Montgomery County Council member and former Council President Nancy Navarro, who during a live meeting of the County Council held via Zoom on Tuesday, March 2nd, was the subject of demeaning comments for her accent and pronunciation by two technical support individuals unaware they were speaking on a hot mic. In a letter to her council colleagues, Councilmember Navarro wrote, "This sort of commentary is completely inappropriate and uncalled for. It's a loud commentary on the toxicity and culture of disrespect directed at leaders and community members of color. We agree and strongly condemn this type of microaggression." Laura's suggesting that we change that to behavior, which can be searingly painful in the moment in which it occurs, can have long-term cumulative negative effects on the physical and mental health of persons repeatedly subjected to this type of behavior, and can inhibit their willingness to participate in the public sphere and have their voices heard. So I put in here that I wanted it unanimously adopted by the Central Committee. And I would like to do that because I think it's important for us to speak out on issues like this. So is there any discussion about this?
I'll just say first, agree 100% with the letter and hope it's unanimous. Did we want to change that one word, microaggression?
Sure, we can change it to behavior. So we'll change microaggression to behavior.
Yeah, Linda, where it says demeaning comments for her accent and pronunciation of words, pronunciation of, it just says
Well, her
pronunciation
accent
by.
and pronunciation. No, that's a little bit of a misplaced modifier. So
Okay.
she was the subject of demeaning comments by two technical support individuals. She was subject to demeaning comments. Maybe if we said about her accent,
Yeah, something.
pronunciation by two technical support. So let me make a note of that.
How about regarding instead of about?
Okay.
It was directly about, though.
Yeah, it
Oh,
was. It wasn't
okay.
regarding. It was directly
Okay.
about it. So I think I think about.
Okay.
Yeah.
She was the subject by two technical support individuals of demeaning comments that these two individuals made demeaning comments about.
Right. And that's a little bit of a, like I said, it's a little bit of a misplaced modifier, but I'm not sure I want to change it because the important point here is that she was subject to the demeaning comments.
Yes.
And pronunciation. Subject of demeaning comments about her accents. Okay. By two technical support individuals unaware they were speaking on a hot mic. Okay, anything else?
This is Arthur. What about that last time unanimously adopted by the Montgomery County versus this day?
Sure. I think what we'll do there is insert, the date. Unanimously adopted on March 9th by.
Why do you need to say March 9th when you got it?
Because it was at our meeting.
Linda, style issue, the date is already at the top of the page.
That's what I'm pointing toward. Yeah.
All right, that's fine. We can take out this day.
Are you going to change microaggression to behavior?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to say I'm really proud of our group for stepping up like this. And hopefully it'll be unanimous. And I just.
Well, it's got to be now after we talked about it like this.
So I move that we adopt this letter with the recommended changes.
Okay, thank you.
A second.
Seconded by, who seconded it?
Shruti.
Oh, Shruti did, thank you. I can't see because I have my screen share up. Okay, any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposition? Let the record show that it was in fact adopted unanimously. Okay, great, thank you. The only other thing I have for tonight is two announcements. One is I want to congratulate Moomin on his Community Service Award. Moomin does
Thank you.
tremendous work in the Up County. He's out every weekend and more, passing out food, doing all kinds of things. And he was recently recognized by his community for all the great work that he does. And I just wanted to make sure that we recognized it too. So congratulations, Moomin.
Thank you.
And thank you for all that you do. And then the other announcement that I wanted to make was about an event that Shruti alluded to on March 25th. We have invited Steve Rosenthal, who used to be the political director at the AFL-CIO, but he also is a longtime political consultant. He started a group called America Coming Together. This was back during the Kerry campaign, and they put 4,000 volunteers out in the field. And we're really one of the first groups to use minivan and to use, mobile technology to assist with contacting voters. And that plus his labor background gives him a very keen insight into how to organize for political campaigns. He recently wrote an article in American Prospect magazine about that and about how the Democratic Party needs to do that as we enter the 2022 cycle. And so I asked him to come and do a presentation, and he's doing that. I think it'll be very interesting. It's March 25th at 7:30 on Zoom. And, I would encourage everyone to attend. I think we might all learn something. And then as Shruti said, we're going to use that as a kind of a launch to, we're aiming it at precinct leaders and using it as a launch for our precinct leaders training as we go forward. So that's what I have. Does anybody have anything else?
Yeah, Linda, I put it in the chat. Tomorrow night, we have an event, D14, 15, and 39.
Right.
Hopefully, everyone, whoever is available can join us.
Yes.
And the link is in the chat.
Let me see. I don't see it in the chat anymore.
Oh, I'm sorry. Didn't I?
Oh yeah, there it is. There it is. I see it now. It's also was in the newsletter, and it'll be in the newsletter tomorrow as well. It's all the Up County, and the discussion is going to be kitchen table issues. So it's really a unique kind of program, and I think it'll be really interesting. Thank you, Moomin, for bringing that up. Andrew Sondri's here. He was one of the organizers along with Moomin and some other folks up there.
I'd just like to ask a quick question about that.
Yeah,
it looks dynamite to me. It looks really great. But Moomin, could you just very briefly describe exactly which issues you think you were planning to raise as kitchen table issues?
Andrew, are you on the call?
Yeah, I'll call on Andrew. Andrew Sondri, are you still here?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay, would you like to answer Erwin's question for him?
Yeah, that's a very good question. We had a wide-ranging discussion when we were planning the event for tomorrow, and so there's sort of a very broad array of topics. I think sort of what was settled on was that it was going to be around issues facing the community in terms of COVID relief and rent relief and economic issues that the Up County is facing during the COVID era.
And unemployment and many other issues. Yeah, that would come up, I'm sure.
Yeah. So really that whole basket of issues about, vaccines and unemployment.
Right. There were a lot of different things people wanted to talk about, and we were like, okay, how can we talk about all of these things sort of together? And that was sort of how we landed on the framework for that.
Andrew, this is Pam. Is it open to anybody? And is this just a roundtable discussion that you're having with who? Are there speakers, panelists, or who's engaged?
Yes,
If you don't mind.
so we'll have U.S. Senator Chris Van Hollen is going to be speaking at the beginning, and there'll be some questions for him. And then we're going to go around and we have a set of speakers from the state and county government. Each of the districts in the coalition has a different member of their delegation to Annapolis speaking. So we've got Senator Craig Zucker, Senate Majority Leader, Nancy King, Delegate Lily Chi, and then Council Member Craig Rice, who will be talking, the one after another, just sort of giving a brief discussion of some of the things that they're working on. And then we'll have sort of a town hall like question and answer session.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think this is going to be really cool. And I do want to commend Andrew, who's done a whole lot to really bring the up county folks together. They're kind of split between 15, 39 and 14, and he's trying to bring them all together.
Yep, he's the glue. He's the glue.
Right.
You're too kind. Thank you.
And they're also talking about a breakfast club up there too.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, we're talking about forming a breakfast club. So we'll see how that goes after this.
Yeah. So anyway, so yeah, put that on your calendars for tomorrow night. I think it'll be a really good event. And it's it's very unique, and if it works, we'll export it. We'll do other things like that. I mean, we're talking about working on issues. One other thing, speaking of that, is I'm in discussions with John Sarbanes. I spoke to him today about us doing an event on HR1, the For the People Act, on voter suppression. And, that's going before the Senate. There's going to be a lot around that in terms of filibuster, and all that. And I think we're probably going to do a session on that with John Sarbanes and maybe some other folks to get people activated around that issue. It's very, very important. I think you all know that. So, and the only way we're going to stop what the Republicans are doing in like these states like Georgia and Pennsylvania and Arizona, where they're really trying to curtail people's right to vote. The only way we can stop that is by passing this legislation. So we have to figure out a way to do it, and he wants our help, and so we will be helping him. So stay tuned for that. That'll be before the end of the month at some point. Okay, anything else? Anybody have anything else?
Yeah, Linda, if I could, I want to
go ahead,
congratulate Andrew Sondry. He has been appointed by the county executive and approved by the council to serve on the Up County Citizen Advisory Board. Congratulations.
Oh, excellent. I didn't know that. Congratulations, Andrew. Congratulations. Good.
UCAP, as we call it, UCAP.
Yes, UCAP. Looking forward to it. Thank you so much.
Excellent. And Arthur, did you have anything to report on the redistricting yet?
Not yet. We have another meeting tomorrow evening. So we're just, other than the fact that, as was mentioned earlier, from that we probably won't get any finals until sometime later in the year. The numbers won't come from the state till maybe late July, August, September, somewhere thereabouts. But we don't have any information to share at this point.
Okay. Well, keep us posted, okay?
I sure will.
Okay, thanks. All right, everybody, thank you for a terrific meeting. I know it was long. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for a terrific meeting. Thank you for a terrific strategic plan. Now we know what we need to do to win the governorship and keep our U.S. Senate seat in 2022. So let's go do it. Okay?
Linda,
and get contributors and contribute money. Please, please, please.
Yeah. Linda, I move for adjournment.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? We are adjourned. Thank you very much. Be
Thank
safe,
you.
everyone. Get vaccinated. Goodbye.
Right.
Good night, everybody. Good work.
Good work.